So hi again, guys. Sorry we were muted. I'm Mod Jon. I'm joined with Mod Hunter, Mod Conor, and Mod Pi for this DarkScape developer Q&A. The question that I just asked that you probably saw us mime was, will Invention, when it comes out, no, trolling. When it comes out, will it be ported to DarkScape or not?
No, I think we've said this quite a few times. Basically, the content that goes into RuneScape main is why RuneScape people pay membership, basically.
Yeah, sure.
Whereas in DarkScape, you don't pay membership for content. So adding invention, it's saying, hey guys, pay membership to get invention, or by the way, DarkScape's going to get it for free. It's kind of a bit scummy. So
yeah, agreed.
It's also a significant amount of development investment for us to try and put something like that in. That takes away from things that we can implement in DarkScape that play to DarkScape's strengths.
Of course.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'm going to get straight into the nitty-gritty of things and talk about the GE tags.
Yeah.
First question from The Prestige. Why won't you make poll votes for big updates such as the GE tax? Will you consider doing this in the future? And if you do or do not, why or why not?
So what we're doing with DarkScape is we're doing a lot of experimental updates. With these experimental updates, what we do is we add them, and then we look at basically cold hard data of how it's affected the game. If we voted beforehand, then it would be rated based on perception rather than actual impact on the game.
Okay.
So for updates like this, I'm afraid we won't vote on them, but what we will do is we'll add them and then react based on how they work in the game.
Okay, thank you. I saw someone on Reddit earlier saying that DarkScape was more of a beta. Is that something that's kind of true, or is it?
Not really, because we're not planning on wiping your save games. So DarkScape is in the early stages. It's subject to massive change, like a beta. However, unlike a beta, when we come out of beta stage, or when we're making massive changes to try and define what DarkScape is. We're not going to wipe your save game, so you effectively should treat it as if it's the live game.
Okay, cool. Swifty McFisty is asking.
Nice name.
Yeah. I think that the G would work best if you could see what was for sale at the other threat levels. Right now, it doesn't make sense for me to walk 7.5 million out to the Wilderness G for a BGS if I don't know if it's for sale there or not. Sorry, I have trouble speaking today.
Yeah, so we talked about this and we kind of agree it would be really nice for you to see what's available. However, that information is held in a dark corner on a random module on our infrastructure, and pulling that into the game is actually quite a lot of work.
Okay.
It's kind of a nice to have, and we think we've got some stuff like the combat updates that would take priority over this. And I don't think we add it fast enough for it to make an impact on the current set of updates. But we do agree it would be really cool.
Yeah.
You kind of want to have a look at what's available and try to make a judgment call on where you should go with it. If you are going to play the markets, being able to see the markets is useful.
Okay. Sure. I did want to ask something to follow up. Yes, so we will be talking about combat, as you mentioned, combat. We'll be talking about combat after this section sometime, and we'll also be showing off some things on the computers.
Yeah,
I'm
going to be showing you spreadsheets, so get ready for some numbers.
Everybody loves a good scrolling
Everybody
spreadsheet.
loves a nice spreadsheet. A nicely organised spreadsheet is nice.
That would be true if I organised my spreadsheets nicely.
Okay. Well,
I mean, it was.
Don't expect any spreadsheet revolution.
No one has stated that this is a nicely organised spreadsheet.
True. Mojo Hazza wants to know, what do you think of the idea of higher taxes for higher value items and lower taxes or no taxes for low value items?
Okay, so this is another thing we discussed in quite detail, wasn't it?
It was one where if we did do it, would be quite open to abuse, as like you could sell whatever limit of the items is below whatever threshold is set.
Yes, you sell like 10 logs at a time.
Yeah, and just avoid it like that.
It also adds another layer of complexity. See, like, where am I? Right, I'm in mid, so that's 10% tax. Then I've got to multiply that by my 1 mil to 5 mil tax ratio, and there's like you're going to need to get out a piece of paper to work out what you're going to be paying and when.
Yeah,
there is a behaviour that kind of thing instigates as well. Is like you end up with huge bandings, where you get a tight clump of items around whatever those thresholds are, then nothing above it for like a couple of thousand, and then it goes up again. So like you can see that you don't get the normal spread of regular costs for items. You just stop. Like, let's say everything above 10k is taxed, everything below it isn't. Why would I ever sell anything for 11k or 12 or 13? It just cuts those price bandings out of the market entirely. And
that makes sense.
Yeah. So it really wouldn't get the behavior that we're expecting to get from the game.
Okay. Man the Game asks, are you going to do anything about the GE taxes? So this is a more broad question on the update that we released.
Yes.
Yes.
Right now, it's like we're getting data in on what the effect of the GE tax has. We are looking at whether or not people leave. The answer to that is no, but shh.
Don't tell anyone.
Don't tell anyone. But it's too early to tell at this point, really. I think making a quick reaction based on making a quick reaction based on a lot of negative feedback without trying it very much and a couple of days of data isn't very good. But that's not to say we're not going to take how you feel into account. We're going to take about at least a week's worth of data. Not saying a week's worth of data, at least a week's worth of data.
Okay.
See how it affects the game, see how you feel after a while of it being there. Look at it.
We had an objective with the tax. Part of it is introducing a tax in the early state of an economy means that we can keep the value of the gold fairly level, and that's pretty handy. The other part that we wanted to do is kind of keeping to DarkScape's roots and rewarding high risk. So if you're willing to take the chance, we try and give you the reward back. That was the intention. We want to see if that follows through on the execution and see if that's how people are playing and how people are behaving.
Makes sense. Okay, another question from Diomedes. Sorry, I'll let you choke in peace.
Yeah, sorry. I got really dry throat.
I've only got about 4 diseases for the...
Oh, sparkling. You have sparkling. Sorry.
Anyway.
Diseases aren't the problem, it's sparkling.
Sparklescape.
Sorry, carry on.
That's all right. Diomedes wants to know, will the taxes imposed be used to create stuff for players around the GE of that area? For example, like improving the local area, adding guards, adding, I don't know, barricades or anything?
I think that's very meta. Like,
yeah.
It's quite interesting. Like, we pay our taxes, now give us stuff.
It's an amusing idea.
I already have it's the expectance of stuff. We didn't pay taxes before. Where did the castle come from?
I don't think it's a good idea, mainly because if we spent our time doing that, we'd spend less time doing other cooler things.
What about if we gilded every brick and every wall and we slowly made it more and more gold as people paid more taxes?
Colour things more yellow.
Yeah. Yeah, the more taxes people pay, the more times we'll use yellow in the game.
Okay.
That's not a guarantee.
So a question from the chat from Mr. Popo21. Will you consider shutting down medium or high level GE until we get a bigger community? Smuggling isn't fun and it kills the fun out of the game.
I think it's a fair comment. It's something that we're looking at. We wanted, the objective was to try and see if we can spread people through the world and if we can see them engaging in the other GEs a bit more. That was how we kind of envisioned it at the start, and we wanted to see if people started doing that. And we're not seeing, and this is kind of comes down to the idea behind the taxes. We're not going to make a knee-jerk reaction. We're going to look and see how it works over time. We've had months of trying to see how people use the different regions and how they affect gameplay. And now we can start making real decisions on whether they're doing what we need them to do. So is smuggling a good idea? Should we keep the banks? Should the GE be condensed back down into one? Do we not need to? Three.
It's worth saying these are things we're going to take a long, hard look at
in
the coming weeks. There's going to be a lot of long meetings, getting a lot of data and seeing how you guys are using it. And to actually, say, okay, are we going to keep this? We're going to keep pushing this. Should we remove it or should we tweak it more? Like, what can we do to improve things?
And this, I suppose, is where some of that feeling of it kind of feeling like a beat is. We want to make these changes because we want to we're not going to hold steadfast to what we wanted from the start. Oh, I suppose we'll do as much as possible. But the core of DarkScape is it should be a dangerous place.
Yeah, it should be dangerous, enjoyable.
Yeah. It doesn't need to have the 3 markets to do that. It doesn't need to have the 3 threat levels to do that. We thought it would cause some dynamism in how people react to the different areas. And in some ways it has done that. Like people start transitioning through. But maybe the banks are going too far. Maybe the Gs are going too far. Maybe we start looking at the transition points. Maybe they're not necessary. So it'll be a bigger discussion. We're very willing to make changes to those places. I mean, the core part of the game is the PvP everywhere.
Yeah.
That's the big thing.
That's the one thing that I would kick and scream.
Yeah, no, that's not going to change. Yeah.
Okay, so changes to GE or bank would also mean changes to how people smuggle their items as well, and that's something that was coming up quite a lot on Reddit and the forums. It's like people spend a lot of time smuggling, and they'd rather spend time doing something else in the game than smuggling their items.
Yeah, like we've talked about this, like whether or not smuggling adds to the gameplay or detracts from the gameplay. And to some point, it does add to the gameplay in that we've seen some quite cool like stuff, like posts on Reddit of how like how you feel while smuggling. It's like it's quite good. But then on the other side, there's like things like quests. If a quest spans 2 threat areas, it's just frustrating to be killed for your quest items.
Yeah.
So you know, it's something.
Is it particular items that are a problem? Do we have a different storage that spans all 3 that lets you put particular things in there, non-tradable things, like a non-tradable region-spanning bank? That means that I have somewhere that I can drop things off and pick it up later on that nobody could have picked up if they killed me anyway, so there's no problem.
Okay.
You know, something like that. Like these are all things that we can look at doing.
So loads of ideas anyway that you've got.
Yeah.
So you're definitely looking into these things.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Perfect. A couple more questions from the chat. So Comrade Connor. Is that
Hey, no, that's not me. Hello, comrade.
So the taxes make it so that in the long run, every gold a member earns will be worth more than a free-to-play's gold. How will you address this long-run disparity?
That's quite funky. Only if you trade through the GE. The interesting thing is, like, we haven't seen a pickup in player-to-player trades. There's no GE tax in player-player trades, and you can trade stood at low GE.
Yeah.
So it's interesting.
Yeah, I think that's a false value.
Yeah.
That's in the same way that a member's time is twice as effective as 1.5 times as effective as a free-to-play player's time.
Okay.
So yes, I guess, but 1 gold coin is going to go through so many hands before it eventually gets removed from the game that it doesn't really matter. Members have more buying power. It's part of what they get as a membership benefit. We don't lock content away, but we need to find ways that we can make members feel like they're getting value for taking part in the game.
Makes sense. Another question from the chat. Only Russell. How will tax help an economy with essentially an unlimited amount of gold / money?
An unlimited or limited?
An unlimited. That's the question.
Unlimited.
Well, technically it is.
What,
If it's a free-to-play game and there's no time restriction, then you continuously go in and do the same thing over and over again to generate gold out of nothing. So there's an unlimited supply of gold. But in the same way that if you want to sell that item to anybody else in the game, then there's an unlimited amount of taxation that we can put on top of that piece of gold. Also, you could drop it and it'll vanish.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
I've forgotten the question already.
Do you want me to ask you again, or?
So unlimited, how does taxation work in an unlimited economy?
Basically, yeah.
I don't know. It's been a long time since I've been an economics lecturer. Do we go into supply and demand and
do we raise taxes with with gold injection?
Oh, that's a good idea. We'll proportionally increase the tax.
Yeah.
No.
No.
It stays the way
taxes.
it is.
Sorry.
Yes. I can't think of a nice way to answer that.
Okay. Last question on the G from Reese. Can we have a tax evasion skill?
Oh, yes. No.
Yes,
It's part of
It's
thieving.
called membership.
Yeah.
Oh.
And player-to-player trading.
Player trading, yes. We'll put in player-to-player. Oh my God! Imagine if you got some XP every time you did a player-to-player trade.
That wouldn't be abused at all.
Oh, massively
We'd
abused.
have to start taxing trading as well, so to incur diminishing returns. Like, no.
Player-to-player trading causes a skull.
Ouch. Yeah.
You're sculled for taking money away from the governing nation that you're trading within.
Maybe go one
Something
step
like that.
further and put gold into the different kingdoms' coffers. So like,
This conversation got real deep really fast.
Yeah.
It's taxes, man.
Yeah.
anyway, I've got a question about barricades. Might
Yeah.
lighten the mood a bit. So Rubixion wants to know, will the barricade pathing issues be resolved, or will they be left in game as a feature?
They're deliberate. We
Yeah,
actually
they're
added
deliberate,
that
okay.
functionality. It's functionality that got taken away from Barricades and like Castle Wars and Soul Wars quite a while ago. It's something we want to add back in. And if you play the main game, then you'll be really, really happy to know... play RuneScape 3. I've got to stop calling it the main game. There are many games. All of them are awesome.
Well said.
Yeah, but if you play RuneScape 3, then you may find that the Castle Wars and Soul Wars barricades start blocking your walking again, because we're going to look at ninjaing that in for you. But yeah, it's intended.
Okay. About barricades, how do you feel it's gone down? By the way, guys, if you've got any questions about barricades, please ask them in the chat, and I will get them on my trusty iPad. So yeah, how do you feel the barricades went down?
Yeah, I
Been pretty
find it's
awesome.
been very interesting to...
It's been brilliant. Like, I actually joined in with the bot.
Yeah.
Like blocking the rune crafting bots and just killing them off one by one. Like,
Yeah.
it's been great.
That has
fun.
been an amazing kind of side effect that was half expected that something like that would happen, but actually seeing it actually in practice is quite amusing.
It's not just that, it's finding all the little places that people thought to put them down. Because obviously we thought people would just try and block off the GE. That's why the guards come along and go, no, if you completely block it off. But like things like trapping the dwarven path underneath White Wolf Mountain, for instance. That's really good.
That was the first I saw on Reddit straight after the update.
People barricading the entrances to runecrafting altars, so that once you step in, getting out is hell.
Yeah.
Because you've got to path around this to get to the portal, and you get to PK people. Like all of the cool little places.
Yeah,
that people have
either that or like going around Lodestone, so you spawn in and then it's just like...
I'm surprised at how little that happened.
Yeah.
I thought that would be everywhere. I thought it was the first thing that people would do. That's been really good.
But like really enjoyed it.
And yeah, it might be something that we take further in future if different sort of deployable things.
We have been talking about traps, haven't we? Which is quite cool.
Need to figure out exactly how we
how
do that.
How that would work and how like you wouldn't just lay down traps to explode everyone. But
So kind of related question from the chat.
That's not fleshed out. But
Okay. A kind of related question from the chat here. Will you do the agility to jump over barricades, possibly take damage if you fail to jump the barricade? Kind of relating to the trap thing.
I don't see a reason not to at the moment. It's probably worth seeing more how they go for the time being than to do it immediately, but there's no reason that we can't do that.
You could do a hurdle race like that.
that'd be quite fun.
Gillinall Games.
That is emergent gameplay right there.
Exactly. Okay, so that was all for barricades. I only had one question on my sheet. Down to general questions now. Shadembo wants to know, any thoughts about implementing pre-OC combat to DarkScape rather than creating an entirely new combat system?
Oh, that old chestnut. Firstly...
Sorry, hitting hard for the first one.
Yeah, that's fine. We're not creating an entirely new combat system. We're adding tweaks and cool things to the existing one. Doing that, in fact, would be creating an entirely new combat system, funnily enough, and would be a lot more work than what we're doing. But that doesn't really answer your question, so let's actually just rein it back. So with DarkScape, we wanted DarkScape to define what DarkScape is. We didn't want it to be a 2011 server or an 07 server. If we wanted to give you a 2011 or 07 server, we would have really given you a 2011 or an 07 server. What we're giving you is a DarkScape server. So it's more about DarkScape defining itself as what DarkScape is and actually doing something new rather than looking at the past.
Okay. Cool. That's a nice answer. Thank you. And hashtag Derpino is asking, kind of related, an ETA on the first combat batch.
All eyes on you.
I get asked this every day. Genuinely every single day by Connor.
At least twice.
Yeah.
In the morning. You done yet?
As fast as I can humanly do it without screwing it up.
You're not human. You should be faster than this.
Well, if you want to spend $6 million on me.
Only if it makes that sound effect when you jump.
Anyway.
That totally makes sense.
Yeah, it does totally make sense.
It's
no
really
context needed at all.
So I'm going to give you a bit of an update in a little bit. But I think we should get through the questions before I
of
give
course,
you the update.
We are going with that staged release, so we have ways that we can get there without breaking the current system, that we can make continuous improvements as we go along. And so rather than it being a lump release of like, oh, look, everything's changed, everybody, guess what happened? It's going to be more parts coming out, get used to them, see how they work. We tweak them, same way we've done with everything else we've developed so far. We tweak them based on how people are using them. We look at the data to see that they're being used the way we expect them to. And if they're not, if it's a bad thing, we change it. If it's a good thing, then we leave it go. And then we do the next set and the next set.
Okay. Yeah, and they have some dependencies within them, so like how the first batch works impacts how the second batch works.
Yeah, so like with the first one, we're diminishing the combat triangle, and the second one, we've earmarked completely removing it. So we're gonna diminish it, and then we're gonna see how that goes, and then we'll potentially remove it.
Okay. I'm gonna ask. Any chance something's going to come out before the end of this year, or is that something that you don't want to plan yourself on
yet? I
yet?
hope it comes out before the end of this year.
I hope so.
Yeah, you'll kill me if it doesn't.
Yes.
I won't be allowed to have Christmas leave if it
We will
doesn't come out
pause
this year.
time.
Oh, can I get Burner's watch? I've always wanted Burner's watch.
No.
Get a time turner from Harry Potter.
No. Wrong universe. Move on.
Not cool as well.
Okay, Daniel wants to know, what plans do you have to using the voting system like it was done with designing the Dungeoneering update?
We do want to do that, but we want to do that with, like, we're not voting everything. So in old school, it's very much driven by what the players want. Everyone gets a yes or no vote.
Okay.
With RuneScape 3, we're like you've got things like players power, etc. With DarkScape, it's the other side of the spectrum. We're gonna do some things without asking you first. I know it seems crazy, but we're literally going to do it and see how it affects the game. Sometimes we'll get it wrong. I'm not going to say we'll always get it right.
On the other side, we're far more likely to rip something out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we will strip content from DarkScape, whereas we wouldn't strip it from RS3. I don't think we'd strip it from... Oh, we've removed some things from old school. But we're far less likely we're far more likely to remove things quickly out of DarkScape if we know they're not working.
Yeah.
Okay.
But for like the Dungeoneering one, genuinely was, we're not sure, we're giving it over to you, and we will do that in other places. Like,
yeah, it was just difficult to make the decision. We were looking at, we saw two completely viable options in front of us, and we weren't really sure which one we wanted to go with. We thought it would be good to get something to players' hands quickly. The other one was so far off in the distance that we wanted to try and put that in front of the players to make sure.
Okay.
Yeah, we had to see what happened.
Cool. Another question from Legendaire. What kind of ideas do you have for clans in the future? You recently talked about wanting clans to take over cities. Could you explain what sort of rewards, benefits to any city in DarkScape you have in mind?
So, yeah, let's start with the disclaimer here and say we've got an awful lot of cool stuff we want to do before we start messing around with clans. So don't expect it anytime soon. However, we do want to do cool stuff with clans. In terms of like holding areas, for instance, if it's a town, say potentially it goes into all of the money that goes into a shop gets a percentage of it. Your clan gets put into a clan coffer, for instance, right? So you take a cut from all of the shops in that town, or maybe we put a unique high level resource in the wilderness, and we implement a system much like Soul Wars has, where the more of your clan stood in it, eventually your clan takes control of it.
You wouldn't even need that at the moment. If we tightened up the access path and a clan could create enough barricades, they could barricade themselves in around a particular resource.
Totally completely barricade.
So those runes, we have the source of. Oh, my brain stopped working.
What?
I don't know. Just stopped. Damn it!
Turn it off and back on again.
Yeah, just turn it off and turn it back on again. No, what resource do we have in the wilderness at the moment? Deg moved it in there.
Oh, that narrows it down.
Yeah, brilliant.
Everything.
Yeah, it's all Deg. Forget it. You can probably lock something. You can already do half of that.
Yeah, Rune Rocks is unique to them.
Yeah,
you could literally barricade in Rune Rocks.
Yeah, and take it over completely.
These are mine. Go away.
And then own the supply on that server.
Yeah.
Could happen already.
There's nothing supporting a clan from doing these things already. It's just we're putting in the actual enforced supporting systems.
Okay, so I think what he meant was like incentives to actually go and take over a city.
A pat in the back, and if If they manage to do it, I'd
You
be
get
very
your-
surprised.
You get your clan flag at the entrances to all of the things, and you get a
That'd be cool.
million people wanting to join your clan.
That's already incentive enough. Justice wants to know, are you happy with how changing most NPCs to being aggressive worked out? Have you considered reverting it? In my opinion, it has minimal impact on making the world more dangerous and extremely frustrating.
It's not about making it more dangerous. It's about the feeling of, in DarkScape, everything wants to kill you.
You must die,
Okay.
and I have a chance to make that happen, so I must take it.
There is another point to that, in that in certain places where it kind of detracts from gameplay rather than adds to the overall feeling of DarkScape, yeah, we will look at it. Places like the Scorpions, where we brought in their range. I did actually want to change the gnomes in Gnome Stronghold to stop attacking you once you've completed Grand Tree, because it kind of makes sense before you've completed Grand Tree, because Gluffery is kind of like, no, is it Gluffery?
Gluffery, yeah.
Yeah.
Never actually say his name out loud. It's just text.
But during Grand Tree, the gnome guards should attack you. They've been told to attack you, but afterwards it doesn't make sense, for instance. Okay. But in general, no, we want to keep it.
Okay, I'm going to take a few questions from the chat who have been added to my iPad. One question, open source. Will you ever open source DarkScape so us developers can help?
No.
No.
Okay.
Sorry.
JDV wants to know, what are your plans for dungeoneering weapons or any other higher weapon tiers over 75?
So here's an interesting one, because tier 80 is kind of a bit funky right now. In the, you have ranged, I think you've got mage. What's tier 80 mage that people can get hold of? I mean, you've got the Wildy-worm weapons, they're 85.
85, yeah.
However, with dungeoneering not being in the game, easy access to tier 80 is pretty bad, because you don't have Elf City and you don't have dungeoneering. There's two things I'd love to get into the game, but then we remove an awful lot of rewards from dungeoneering by adding them.
Okay.
In terms of bosses, we're going to have the same problem, because certain tier 90 bosses are much more difficult than other tier 90 bosses. For instance, I'm surprised no one's got Ascensions yet, because I reckon Ascensions are totally doable in DarkScape right now.
True.
Whereas getting a Seismic
is going
to be pretty impressive. Like, before you can even take down Viraga, you have to go and take down Rots to get the shield to Voke. So, like, it's worth saying that every boss in the main game has been... Stop it.
In RS3.
In RS3 has been... I'm going to get told off for this, I am.
You need to get an electric shock collar.
He's fine. We'll leave him off.
Every boss in RS3 has been killed via Legacy. So it is definitely doable. Not necessarily with lower tier, not necessarily with lower tier stuff. However, you'll see in a minute, looking at the changes I'm making for PvP, I'm probably going to have to go through and rebalance the bosses anyway.
Okay. Do you want to ask a couple of other questions and then we can go over to the game PC so you can show off those spreadsheets? Chrono AM is asking about Verax armor, and it's actually at the moment lowering damage rather than increasing it.
Is it something? For next release.
Oh, it's fixing it.
Yeah,
okay, it's already fixed.
Yeah, they were right for everything that scaled up damage. Unfortunately, Legacy inherently scales up damage.
Okay.
So anything that does 100% weapon damage, we're going to fix that in RS3 as well.
There you go.
Yeah, okay.
Nice. Well caught.
Well caught, yeah. But we're going to fix that. We're going to port that fix over as well.
Okay. A question about smuggling here from Kembrox. What if you introduce a smuggler behind banks that transfers items to different banks? He would charge 5% of the total value of the item being transferred.
That's pretty cool.
So basically,
might
like
have to look at
an
the value
NPC
of what
you
you charge
speak
him. It's not a bad idea. We can consider that.
to. Okay.
So you have to put it on the iPad.
You might as well put something in there.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's the PyPad. First entry on the PyPad of today. And one last question before we go over. Can we have a nemesis system?
That sounds awesome.
That's kind of coming with bounties.
Isn't that going to be the blue skull kind of?
Not
No,
really,
so Blue Skull would be like people who go out and take out skulled people.
No, it's not a full-on nemesis system, as in like the guy that's killed me the most I hate that guy.
That would be so good.
But you will be able to put the guy that killed you on the bounty board for money, which would be quite cool.
Could we track the person who kills you the most?
We don't.
Technically, yes.
We don't at the moment, but we probably could.
Yeah, we do. We track the last 3 people that attacked you.
Could you keep one aside and make sure that that slot is always there, and something that counts kills?
It's definitely doable.
We can probably get ways to do it. Yeah.
You could probably do that in a quick way. We need to think about how it would be represented and how you could use it.
Yeah, but it's definitely something we can look at. I'm guessing I'm the only one whose mind went straight to Resident Evil Nemesis rather than...
Yes.
Yeah.
No, I went to mine as well when I saw that.
We're going to put a massive monster in the game,
Yeah.
careening across the world. I remember playing that. It was terrifying.
Someone's saying it would be boosted. Like, we're not saying you get anything for doing this. It will just say who is your nemesis. So feel free to boost who is your nemesis. But
yeah, to get
someone
someone to be your nemesis,
have a nemesis icon above their head or something, then that's all cool. But
they have to go slaughter you
for
for an extended period of time.
I mean, people boost KDR, but you don't get anything for it other than just a cool quick chat.
Yeah.
Okay. So do you want to head over to the game PCs? I'll ask one question whilst you're whilst you're getting over there. So
Don't worry about
bang,
breaking everything.
It's not as if it was new or anything. So, man the game. Are you going to increase bank spaces for free players?
We don't have any plans to at the moment, especially with the sort of ideas around if we do change banks into a single tier or anything.
I think the fact that we're having that conversation about like what are we doing with banks, what are we doing with Gs, what are we doing with the areas, the fact that we're actually having that conversation means that we're not in a place to change what the spaces will be for either of those groups.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. If Mudpie is ready, we will go over to him right now.
Hello. So what I'm going to show you is a bunch of spreadsheets. I can't see chat where I'm sat, so if you say something, I can't see it, but hopefully I'll be able to see it in a second. The first thing I'm going to address is the overload problem. So this is something that I came in and I instantly addressed as soon as I could. So what you see here is a bunch of columns. So column B is what's currently in RuneScape 3. So these are accuracies, right? So column B, look at the graph. So column B is what is currently in RuneScape 3. Column D is what's currently in DarkScape, and column D, is what I propose goes in. So this line you see at the bottom here, can they see my cursor? Yeah. Cool. This line at the bottom here is basically what's in DarkScape currently. So you see it kind of goes up and then just plateaus and then is completely rubbish. And what's happening with overloads is it's saying, oh yeah, you're 93, let's take you from 93 to 126. And as you can see in this area of the graph, it's not really doing much for you. The reasons why we changed it is because if you look at the blue line here, I think it's blue, I'm colorblind, so if it's purple, just deal with it, just kind of be nice. It's blue, okay. But as you see, like the difference between level 70 and 80 and the difference between level 80 and 90 is different. And that's not something, and in PvP, that's kind of really punishing, like especially as you get later on. You notice that these numbers, if I scroll down quickly, go to level 200. So we've got like plans for level 200, and at level 200, that just gets a bit ridiculous. So what we're going to be changing with the combat system changes is at tier 75 again, instead of plateauing horribly like this, it's just going to go linear. So the difference between 75 and 85 and the difference between 80 and 90 is exactly the same, but you get an awful lot more. That's blue, not green. That's not blue, that's green. Well, this green line then. But yeah, does that make sense? But yeah, we're looking at it. So effectively, your overloads are going to be cool again. TLDR, basically, overloads are going to be cool. So now we've looked at that. Level 200 confirmed. I'm colorblind, be nice. I don't even know what red even is. So we're gonna go into other stuff now. So you see there's extra things here, weapon diversity and diversity. So this one, we're gonna go looking at effectively diminishing the combat triangle, right? So I'm gonna let you into a little bit of secret about how this all works. So these values here are effectively base hit chances. They're a percentage. And these are the weak, strong, and same class are effectively, so same class would be melee versus melee. Weak class, for instance, would be a mage trying to hit a melee guy. So these are base hit chances. So here's what we currently have for RS3 and what we have for PVM in DarkScape, and we'll stay PVM in DarkScape. So you have base 55%. If you're going with the combat triangle, base 65%, and against the combat triangle, base 45%. We basically take these values and then do like your accuracy over their defense. You get a number around 1, give or minus 0 point something, and we multiply it by these to get your accuracy. With the diminish of the combat triangle, these change quite drastically because we're instead of 65, we're going to 57, and instead of 45, we're going to 53. So we're just bringing these numbers right in. If we do completely remove the triangle, then we're just going to go through and change all of these numbers to 55. It doesn't even matter. Another thing we're doing with this before I move on to what this section means is we're completely removing what we refer to as the hybrid nerf. So that means when you wear the wrong piece of gear for the weapon that you're holding, we nerf your accuracy. That is completely gone with this new system. So you can go around and you can range with mage armor if you wanted to. Like, there's nothing stopping you. It's not going to detract from anything. So let's go over what these mean. So old is basically what we've got here. New is what it will be going to. And then here you can see effectively hit chances for someone who's 10 levels behind you, 20 levels behind you, etc. In tank or DPS gear. So as you can see, this is the same. So again, surprise, surprise, like if you're in full tank gear, you've got the full armor, and it's very, very similar to these values over here. If you're in DPS armor, then you drop some armor. You're not wearing a shield as well, and the shield counts for quite a bit, so your hit chances go up. But here's where you need to start looking at the differences between the two. So in the old system, you got 10 levels behind, right? So your Barrows versus Dragon, for instance. And now you can start to see how the combat triangle has been severely diminished. So here you can see again, you've got plus or minus 1% here, and you've got effectively, what's that, 8, 9? I know how to maths, guys. But again, minus 20. It gets bigger because you've got 20 levels. You know, you've got 20 levels on the guy. But again, it's 4% here, whereas here it's much bigger. Does that make sense? So this is only affecting PvP. In PvM, we kind of like how you have to go out and use different pieces of armor. It gives you a reason to have lots of different pieces of armor. And one of the big challenges we have now is, okay, we've removed this, we've diminished that. Why on earth wouldn't you use Mystic instead of Rune if you're meleeing? And that's something we're going to be looking at a little bit later. We haven't done the work for that, but that's the whole reason why we in batch 1, we've batched up the set effects, effectively. Every piece of melee armor does this cool thing, scaling with how much it goes up. Right, so that's the diminishing the triangle. So the last thing I'm going to talk about here is weapon diversity. Now, I'm going to have to ask you to be nice and completely ignore crossbows and thrown because I haven't actually looked at them yet. In fact, those numbers are gone. This is a copy of the spreadsheet. They're not gone forever, don't worry. So we're going to look at, so this is the melee sheet that we showed. The accuracies are bronze, and I believe that these strengths are bronze as well. Let me just go over. So this is currently simulating, bronze. So weapon level 5, strength level 5. Turmoil would be fixed with overload fixed 2. Yeah, it should be. We will make sure that turmoil is fixed when overload fixes. But the core of the problem is basically when you over-leveled accuracy, because we squished the top end, giving you an extra amount of levels didn't give you much more accuracy, if you catch my drift. So by giving you more accuracy at the higher levels, it should counteract that. You're still not going to get as much as you get in RS3, but you will. So this is weapon diversity. So here we're kind of min-maxing on different areas, giving things different niches. So the first thing I've done, you see that these things are highlighted here, is I've changed the speed of a few weapons. And actually, what I did to look at these was I went back, and you see here there's a nice old school section, because I wanted to know what bronze looked at in old school, because I don't need to look at rune, addy, etc. It should scale. And I noticed the Halleys and two-handed swords were rate 7, and in it with EOC these got reverted. And the slower attack speed kind of works with this, making it lots of like big chunky hits. So I've brought that back. So two-handed swords and mauls will be back at rate speed 7. And the damages will change here. So base damage is 96 per level, so times 7/4, you kind of see how the balancing kind of works. What I've also done, however, is short swords are now rate 4 instead of rate 5, and then I've made things really, really fast. So claws and daggers are super fast, and they're rate 3. I'm afraid we won't be adding power with batch 1. So that's kind of batch 2, the big strength changes and the buff to, what's the word I'm looking for? Damage reduction, there we go, I know words. Damage reduction is coming with batch 2. But here you can see we're starting to min-max a little bit here, so things are breaking out of what they should be. So for instance, you get an extra 5, if you look in this value here, you get an extra 5% damage with a two-handed sword or a maul, but if we go to the accuracy, you've lost 5% accuracy. So, you know, it's this big swinging thing that it doesn't hit as often, but when it does, it hits hard. And you can see this reflected in the DPM being lower than that of a scimitar. So if you look at scimitar, in fact, scimitar is the one that the numbers haven't changed. So anything where you see accuracy 110, generally the numbers haven't changed. Hallion side, they have gone down a little bit, but that's because they're range 2. With mage, it's quite simples. I'm thinking about looking at the ranges for mage at the moment, because everything is range 8, and I think we can add more diversity there. But as you can see, once again, air is a bit faster and has a little bit less strength, but a little bit more accuracy. So it's kind of fulfilling the role of like a dagger, but for mage, etc. And finally, let's just look at range. So range was an interesting one because I kind of wanted range to have kind of 2 different ways of diversifying itself. So it's not only got the weapon, but it's also got the arrows and the it's also got arrows and ammunition, for instance. So we're just going to look at bows here because I haven't looked at anything else, but the arrows being sharp or blunt, kind of, they're the same kind of thing. So blunt arrows will deal more damage but be less accurate, whereas kind of sharp arrows will be more accurate but deal less damage. But also with the longbow, shield bow, and short bow. Oh yeah, longbow's coming back, guys. With the longbow, short bow, and shield bow coming in, so they diversify themselves based purely on attack speed and range. So the longbow is going to have a really high range and a high attack speed, but it's going to do slightly less damage. But then what we're going to allow you to do is if you use a sharp arrow, it actually modifies... Nope. Sorry, I have control. It actually modifies the speed of the weapon. So if you use a sharp arrow, all of a sudden, it's effectively bringing back rapid. Where if you use a sharp arrow, you're going to be faster. What about crossbows? Crossbows and thrown I haven't actually rebalanced yet, so they're not in the spreadsheet. I deleted them a minute ago because they were just the base values. Sighted we can add on again. However, little thing about RuneScape is the far biggest range we can have is range 9. So sighting a longbow, I'll see what I can do. But yeah, sighted is a great thing to bring up. Do I have a pen? I will write it down. Make sure I don't forget it. Because that's still got to be cool. But again, so a sharp arrow is going to effectively be like a dagger, so it makes it a bit faster, makes it hit slightly less harder, but gives it a bit more accuracy. But you can combo that with a longbow, so you can kind of counteract the fact that give longbow a bit more accuracy, but slightly that accuracy is wrong because it's not taking into account the accuracy that's already taken away from a longbow, so ignore that number. But you're going to be able to kind of counter and min-max by the different types of ammunition you're using, if it kind of makes sense. So another thing to address, because some of you noticed it in the tweet that we put out. Any plans for shields? So I should mention shields, because if I scroll this way, you'll notice these numbers. So a lot of feedback I got was shields aren't good enough. Make offhands less good. I want main hands to be better. I want more of it to be on the main hand. So if we scroll up, this is what's in RS3 right now, and you see the legacy multiplier is much higher. In fact, I'm going to put these here, but it's not going to read it, but I will put this in like that, so you can actually see what the numbers actually are. So the multiplier for dual-wield and two-handed is an extra 50%. That's lowering to 30% and 35%. So main hand is going to be a bit more tankier. Another thing I'm going to do is I'm dropping the legacy modifier. Now that does mean that I'm going to have to give PVM a bit more of a spit shine, because obviously that's going to bring all of your damage down. But bringing your damage down will go back up again when we bring out the strength changes, because your strength is going to inflate it. However, the best time to address things like two-handers one-hitting people is now, where I can globally nerf damage and then deal with the PVM issue, because DarkScape's about PvP, so I should concentrate more on PvP in my opinion, and then we can look at it. However, less damage is going on to the offhand, so it should hopefully give shields a bit more worth, because the offhand has less worth, if you catch my drift. It's worth stating that these numbers aren't the same anymore. The offhand is slightly better than the two-hander. This is mainly because you're risking more when you've got an offhand. You're risking an extra item. So I think I'll go back to the couch in a minute to answer questions, because I don't think I can answer much more with the spreadsheet, and I'm probably boring you by now. There's only so long you can stare at a spreadsheet. But yeah, let's go throw it back to the couch.
I'm back to the couch, guys. So whilst Mod Pie comes back to join us, I think I'm going to call him Mod Pie, the maths guy, now.
Well, I'm Mod Pie for a reason, right? I chose that name for a reason. I hope I didn't bore people too much with maths.
I saw a lot of positive comments in the chat.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that was really cool. Thank you. I've got a couple of questions from the chat about that.
Was one of them why he doesn't have a pie chart in his graphs?
Disappointing.
Go home.
I don't have any sums in that. Like.
Yeah, whatever.
On Mod Pie, I understand the reason for our pie chart, and I don't have like a real reason to split up percentages, I'm afraid.
You did.
A bar graph or a line chart would be better.
You should have found a reason.
I will find a reason to add a pie chart to that just for you.
Even if it was a circle, reasons to have a pie chart in this.
Okay, so a couple of questions from the chat about these things you just showed. So I'm assuming that these combat updates will be applied to RS3 as well as DarkScape, yes?
No current plans.
No current plans.
So remember me saying earlier on that DarkScape needs to define what DarkScape is. The cool thing about DarkScape is don't take this out of context, but the cool thing about doing this with DarkScape is I don't have to think about EOC. And like, for instance, the reason why the damage multiplier and two-handers are hitting so hard is because it has to compete with Revolution in the main game, in the RS3. So I will stop myself.
You got it perfectly right the whole time you were over there.
I know I did. I was well proud of
Is
myself.
the couch pushing you off?
Yeah, it's the couch.
It's the pressure. It's the eyes staring at me.
The light's really bright, to be fair.
But it doesn't have to compete with anything. So it can be its own thing. I can balance it based on its own merits and effectively fix a lot of problems that you just can't fix in RS3. So porting it to RuneScape 3 would be quite difficult, because once again you've got that problem.
It's not a port. Again. You'd have to redevelop it.
You'd have to redevelop it. I'd have to redesign
it. It's not like there's no such thing as a straight port of what we're doing here.
We did talk about weapon diversification through side effects rather than min-maxing stats, for instance.
But isn't that going to be something Invention is also going to address in some way? So yeah. Okay, thank you. RF Normal Man is asking, will DarkScape see the new Defenders coming to RS3?
That's kind of a difficult one, because that's a strong candidate for port. However, obviously it's an RS3 update, so
have a look to see what
it's difficult.
What kind of gap it would fill.
Yeah.
And see if there's really a call
Also,
for
the cool thing about the new defenders is that they allow you to do dual wield and shield abilities, which is less cool than Legacy.
It's just another offhand.
Yeah.
Okay, and this one from Loken. How much damage reduction does a shield do comparatively? So I don't know what comparatively to, but...
So a shield is actually a big thing. So in terms of ignoring damage reduction, just in terms of hit chance, adding a shield against someone who's kind of the same level as you gives you like an extra 10% less chance to be hit.
Okay.
This is just because I've plugged the numbers in, I've got the combat system to spit out the hit chances. It's about 10%.
It's quite a reduction then.
It's pretty chunky. It's pretty good. Like you saw the difference between tank and DPS. The big change between those numbers that you saw with tank and DPS was I added a shield rather than an offhand.
Okay.
So the hit chances really do help. The problems you get is when you massively overlevel someone. Like that 10% cut starts drawing in an awful lot when you overlevel someone, and your accuracy. Where I stated it's like accuracy over defense. If your accuracy is massively over someone's defense, adding a small percentage of the armor pool isn't really of an already small armor pool isn't really going to save you.
Okay, that will help a tiny bit maybe.
Yeah.
Right.
But in terms of damage reduction as well, damage reduction is based on the armor. So yeah, it adds a significant chunk. And in PVM, in fact, shields have their own damage reduction pool.
Okay.
So they have their they are even more of a special case in PVM.
Okay. A couple of new questions from the chat. So Cannon Train wants to know, will you add incentives like double rewards or whatever for various mini games on a rotating basis?
Sorry,
so that's
what?
not
What,
sorry.
the
That's
mini
not
game rewards.
You said that really fast.
I did. Sorry.
I thought I talked fast.
So it's not to do with combat. So I'll ask it later. Sorry, it's been put onto this in a different order. So Chrono AM. So how are the armor changes going to affect hybrid armors?
So hybrid armors will effectively have what they always had. They get a massive reduction in their armor pool. So they are 15 levels below what their tier is effectively. Like we are removing tierscape a bit in that we're not sticking to it strictly, but we're effectively min-maxing inside the tier. So the tiers are still there. They're just a bit more wibbly wobbly.
Why me?
Yeah.
Oh.
Sorry.
Go on.
I'm not that good. I'm not the doctor. I wish.
Okay, so I'll go back to that was all we had about combat, or what you've just shown on the spreadsheets. So I'll go back to the question asked really fast. I'm not going to ask it as fast, hopefully. Will you add incentives like double rewards or whatever for various mini games on a rotation basis? Most mini games are completely dead at the moment.
Isn't that what the Thaler system is supposed to do?
That is exactly what
it is. Yeah.
I think.
Which
What
is
about we
in
remove
DarkScape.
all of the mini games?
We could delete Trouble Brewing.
No, trouble brewing. I like trouble brewing.
Yeah.
You've got
How
play it in.
well are you getting on playing that by yourself?
Not very well,
You're the
but
only one.
I just make run by myself. It's fine.
Do you play Trouble Brewing on DarkScape?
No, unfortunately.
There you go.
So you don't mind if we remove it?
Yeah, remove it. It's fine.
What mini game would you keep?
Castle Wars.
Well, okay.
Soul Wars.
Soul Wars.
Soul
yeah.
Wars, Castle Wars. Could you
That's
bring
the entire list.
Castle Wars and Soul Wars into the main, like into the overworld, in an easy fashion without having a
Not
round-based
in
system?
an easy fashion. It's round based. So.
Yeah, well, like strip out the round-based system and have a never-ending
you would
fight.
You would also easily be able to stack sides and. I don't know. Like I think it's quite cool. I mean, it is technically there on the surface world.
Yeah,
It would be a bit weird if the castles no longer had walls, but.
they don't need walls. Where we're going, we don't need walls. Too many.
Wouldn't really be Castle Wars anymore or Soul Wars, would it? It'd just be wars.
Just wars.
Yeah.
New mini game. Scrap all other mini games. We're making wars.
Escape wars. So sci-fi. Will DarkScape get a new quest at any point?
Maybe, but not from me. Like
Not from me.
yeah. when I first joined, I made the Christmas quest, and we tried to make it story based. And in the end, Dave just kind of went, you know what, make a lot of mini games. So I'm very much a mechanics based person when it comes to games.
I'm not a story person myself either.
Yeah,
so
so if we
need to find someone.
If we got another person that wanted to make a quest for DarkScape, I don't see a reason why I would ever say no.
Okay.
More stuff is cool, but it probably wouldn't come from the current developers.
Okay. A couple more questions about combat here. So Big Eden is asking, is DarkScape receiving its own new bosses and weapons?
That is,
It got its own boss, didn't it?
Get its
the
own
Halloween boss is technically its own boss. So in terms of new bosses, I love making bosses and I don't get to make them very often. So I would love to add
Chuck
a new
another one in.
boss. Yeah. In terms of time frame, don't expect it soon. In terms of new weapons, here's where it gets difficult, right? So we don't have a professional modeler, so the sharp and blunt arrows are going to have to be remodeled by me.
Can I say ouch or not?
Yeah,
Okay.
we'll see.
We'll see what we can do.
We'll see what we can do. But in terms of getting a new cool weapon, it really shouldn't be modeled by me.
Okay.
We'll see what we can do.
Yeah.
Okay. Another one. Are you planning to diversify ogre bows, throwing axes, daggers, and many other ranged weapons that wasn't on the list? Did you?
Yes.
Are those the ones that you
They
deleted?
were on the list, but I deleted them because I haven't diversified them yet. So all of them were their base values. All of them were the values that you complain about that we're changing. I didn't see the point in showing you. Oh, by the way, guys, these aren't the final values. So that's why I deleted them, because I didn't want to show you values that would disappoint you effectively.
Okay.
So yes, it's happening.
Okay. Cool.
Maybe not with ogre bows though.
Why not? And why discrimination against ogre bows?
It's a bit niche. We could make it its own thing, but I think in
What's your
terms of
problem with
getting,
ogres?
do you want to bloat?
No,
the,
it's fine.
the
Let's just get it out the
update
door.
and
No,
make it
no,
take
no,
longer
you're done. You're
for
fine.
ogre bows.
No, it's okay.
Okay, so I'm going to ask a couple more new other questions, and then we'll be basically done. This has gone for an hour already. We're supposed to last half an hour, so
Yeah, but we're all having fun.
Yeah.
aren't we?
kind of gone over a bit. So Grindmaster wants to know when are charms becoming tradable?
So this is an interesting one because we thought it would be cool, and then we got a lot of feedback, and then we decided it wasn't cool anymore.
Really? Okay.
Mostly because of the time it takes you to train summoning. So by making charms tradable.
James Tradable.
Yeah, charms tradable.
Chimes.
Charms tradable.
Is this points?
We effectively make all of summoning completely viable, and if you have enough money, you could get 1 to 99 in a day.
Yeah, that's not very good.
It's not very good, is it?
Yeah, but while you're trying to train it for that 1 to 99, people are just going to be smacking you in the face. You got to carry so much valuable stuff with you.
I reckon I could do it in a day. If I had all of the supplies, I could do it in a day. If he had all of the supplies, he could get 200 mil in a day.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
but
mean,
you're
that's
psychotic.
Okay.
Well, yeah, I couldn't kill him either.
So we're kind of a lot more on the fence about that one. I think it's quite good that you have to effectively get your own charms.
Could you make them droppable?
They are
They're
droppable.
tradable. Did we do that?
PKable.
Yeah, PKable.
Yeah.
That's
we
exactly
could
the
do.
same as making them tradable,
Yeah.
really.
Well, that means you got to kill someone to get them and buy
You
them.
can't just buy supplies from the GM.
I'm going
Yeah.
to pay
Yeah.
you to have your charms on you.
Yeah, players will just
I
do
will
that.
kill you.
Yeah, but it's significantly more difficult. Well, we thought we'd increase player-to-player trade by putting in a tax system, and that didn't do it. So by taking money off them, they didn't talk to each other. Surely they're not going to talk to each other just to try and get more money to each other.
You never know.
I do. Okay, fine.
Okay, and one last question, hard hitter again probably, for the end. After the initial release and hype of DarkScape, what are your plans for bringing new players into the game?
So this is an interesting one because right now we're doing a lot of big changes to DarkScape to try and put more stringent things in there to effectively define what DarkScape is. And the whole time we're talking about things like, oh, should we remove the threat levels? We're currently not actively pushing it on new people. When we've got that kind of a bit more nailed down, we will do another wave of, hey guys, come look at us, we've changed, this is cool stuff. But right now we're not actively looking at getting new players.
Okay.
There's a couple of big things we wanted to do from the start, and we've implemented none of them so far. And we've been looking at the way players are using the game, like we were saying at the start, like how are they using different threat levels. If we change all that stuff, it's not something that we want to bring people in on top of. But we still see a fairly steady stream of new people coming in each day, and that's great because we need to see how they respond to the game as it's kind of shifted, both in the types of players you have in. I mean, if you jumped in on day one, it was just a mess around Lumbridge. If you jump in now, it's much quieter around Lumbridge, but it starts to get a little busier in other places.
Okay. So basically, once we've defined what DarkScape is for us and for players, we'll probably shout about it a bit more as well.
Yeah.
Okay, that's cool. And I think that question brings this Q&A to an end. So it's been going on for an hour. I hope you guys enjoyed it. This is not keeping to Mod Kelpie's...
bots. Can we talk about bots really quickly?
We can talk about bots quickly
it's
if you
kind
want.
of a big thing. So in the past week, we've actually done quite a lot with bots.
Yes.
We've been speaking to our analytics department that constantly watch the game of the BDI and let us know retroactively what's happened. So if we've missed, they tell us, oh yeah, we've missed these. But they and us have been speaking to what's known as our ICU department, which are the people that go around, define what is a bot, ban the bots, etc. And we've all been having a long conversation, and actually a lot's come out of that.
Okay.
Also, you may have noticed that Lumbridge is incredibly silent at the moment. That's because of the update that Mod Hunter did, where you effectively require 5 levels before you can even speak. The barricades, for instance, have put a massive stop to bots, but we have seen a sharp increase in bots being banned. We have numbers for these, and a sharp decrease in effectively people that would be bots creating new accounts.
It's been really good. We were watching the lines of chat spam that was coming in. It takes time to just make sure that we're catching the right people and we have the right things. Looking for a searching chat for something that is definitely someone's collection of symbols and letters to represent an ad that doesn't catch everything that everybody else is saying and end up banning them too. We have enough data and we've gone to a point where we're catching... I think we went from several thousand lines of spam that we had identified down to 1,000 lines yesterday, and a bunch of them were somebody trying to send people to Reddit.
So I think the best way to put it is that spreadsheet we get where we get a spreadsheet of how many times something has been said in RuneScape, and at the top before 3 days ago, before we had this meeting. The top 5 were the things that you saw spammed in Lumbridge.
And they'd be said thousands of times.
Tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands. It was disgusting. But now the top thing is, guys, if you want to avoid the tax, go to /r RS DarkScape market. I can't remember what it is. And the second one is one sole thing in the whole list that got through our system that will no longer get through our system because it's in our list and we're going to ban it. And that number was in the region of about 560 times. So in the past 2 days, there's been a massive improvement.
Cool, that's good to know, because I did want to talk about bots, but I don't think we had time for it. But cool, thank you very much.
So it's an important topic. It's an important topic, so sorry.
No, it's fine, no problem at all. So that is the end of the stream, unless there's anything else that you want to mention before we've...
Well, there was one.
Go on then.
Oh, no.
No, that was a joke.
I called him on it.
Okay, thank you very much for tuning in, guys. We'll be back next week, so Mod Kelpie will be back on the couch to host, hopefully. And probably have yourself and maybe Mod Hunter again, or we'll see who's up for coming onto the couch. Thank you very much for tuning in. If you've got any questions, go over to the forums on DarkScape, Reddit, or just Twitter any of these guys. Tweet away. So it's at JXPie, at JX Conor, and at JX Hunter, I believe.
Yes.
And we'll see you next time. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.